She didn't even glance at me. Not when she brushed past on her way to the front door. Not when I asked, "Where are you going?" in a voice so weak I barely recognized it as my own. Not when she reached for her keys, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror with surgical detachment. She looked through me, like I was a wall she'd grown tired of staring at. And then she was gone. Red dress, black heels, that new perfume that didn't belong in our apartment. It all burned into my memory like a scene in a movie I wasn't cast in. I didn't even know she had that dress. Tight in the waist, high slit, no sleeves. Not the kind of thing you just throw on for drinks with friends. It clung to her like it knew the damage it would cause. And the way she walked out, confident, poised, a little smile tucked in the corner of her mouth. Not the kind of smile you wear when you're just blowing off steam. The door didn't just close, it slammed. Clean, cold punctuation mark. I sat there on the couch, one hand still holding a forkful of leftover pasta. TV still playing some documentary I wasn't actually watching. That slam echoed longer than it should have. In that silence, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel in weeks. Fear. Not the kind that makes you jump. The kind that sinks its claws into your chest and whispers, "This isn't just a fight. This is the beginning of the end." She didn't tell me where she was going. Didn't invite me. Didn't even fake it. And I should have seen it coming. The signs had been stacking up for a while. Her clothes started changing, tighter, trendier. Her makeup became sharper, bolder. She started showering right after work, which she never used to do, and her phone was suddenly always on silent. I told myself not to overthink it. I told myself we were just in a rut. But when someone you've shared your life with starts acting like they're just visiting, it's hard not to notice. That night I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I kept replaying it over and over, the way she walked out without a single glance back. I kept thinking, she didn't even lie. She just left. I laid in our bed, no, her side of our bed, and stared at the ceiling while the other side stayed cold. I checked my phone more times than I'll admit. No texts, no calls, just silence. Around 3:14 a.m., I heard the front door unlock. I didn't get up. I just listened to her heels click softly against the hardwood floor. She moved through the apartment like she was trying not to be noticed, which hurt even more. No lights, no conversation, just the quiet sound of a woman slipping back into a life she no longer wanted. I lay still, pretending to sleep, hoping maybe she'd slide into bed next to me and whisper something. An apology, an explanation, even a lie. But the sheets never moved. She went to the guest room. She didn't even try. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. I found her in the kitchen, already dressed, scrolling her phone like nothing had happened. Her hair was tied back, face bare, but that distance, that otherness was still there. "You've become a burden, Joel. Just look at yourself." That's what she said. No hesitation, no kindness, just a casual swing of a wrecking ball through the middle of me. It wasn't even the first time she said something about my weight or my appearance, but it was the first time it felt like a statement instead of an observation. Her tone wasn't concerned. It was dismissive, like I was the thing standing between her and the life she wanted. Like I had let myself become inconvenient. I think I laughed. Not because it was funny. I laughed because it felt surreal, like I'd wandered into someone else's breakup. "You've changed too," I said, though my voice cracked when I tried to make it firm. "You don't talk to me anymore. You don't even see me." She didn't deny it. She just stared down into her mug like it had all the answers. "I need space," she said flatly. Not, "We need to talk." Not, "I need to figure things out." Just space. I tried to ask, "From what?" But the words caught in my throat. I already knew the answer. She wasn't asking for space to clear her head. She was carving out room for something or someone else. Later that afternoon, I saw she'd left her phone on the charger by the couch. I didn't check it. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I didn't. Instead, I just sat there staring at it, heart thudding in my chest like it knew something I didn't. That evening, when I came back from a walk, trying to clear my head, trying to feel anything but numb, she was gone again. The red dress was gone too. So were her heels. And again, not a word. No note. No text. Just absence. I checked her Instagram for the first time in weeks. No recent posts, but in her tagged photos, there she was. Someone had posted a story. Just a blurry sh*T from the back. But it was her. That dress, that hair. Laughing at some rooftop bar with a guy's arm resting casually around the back of her chair. I zoomed in, stared until my eyes stung. I didn't recognize the guy, but I recognized her smile. It wasn't the smile she used with me anymore. That was the moment I felt the floor crack underneath everything I thought we were. Not because she had gone out. Not because she was with someone else, not yet anyway. But because she didn't think I even deserved to know. Because whatever we had, she wasn't in it anymore. I was just a leftover, a placeholder. And I realized that night, sitting in the dark with the hum of the fridge and the weight of that silence pressing on my chest, that love doesn't die in fire. It dies in quiet, in indifference, in that slow, aching pull of distance that turns a home into a house and a partner into a stranger. She didn't break my heart that night. She just showed me that she'd already left, long before her body ever followed. Outwardly, everything looked fine. That's the part that messes with your head, the performance. Smiles, quick kisses on the cheek, random texts like, "Need anything from the store?" Or, "Don't forget your appointment at 4. She still played the part of a girlfriend, but if I'd taken a step back, I'd have seen it was all hollow, all set design, no structure behind it. But my gut knew. It had known for a while. Her style had changed first. New clothes, new colors, new energy. She started wearing heels on random Tuesdays and came home smelling like vanilla and something musky. Something that didn't come from any bottle in our bathroom. And not just the scent. The way she carried herself changed. She walked taller. She took more selfies. She started going to that boutique salon across town, the one that gave out complimentary mimosas. That wasn't the Hannah I knew. It wasn't even gradual. It was like she flipped a switch and never looked back. And then came the coldness. It's hard to describe, but if you felt it, you know. The way she spoke to me started changing. Shorter sentences. Less warmth. More sighs. Like my presence irritated her. Her laughter at my dumb jokes. The kind of laugh she used to bury her face into my shoulder for. It vanished. Replaced by a polite chuckle or nothing at all. At first, I blamed myself. Work had been brutal. I hadn't been as present. I wasn't in the best shape. But then she started working late 3 nights a week. That was new. She never used to be that invested in her job. She came home after midnight sometimes, claimed they were launching a new product, or getting ready for a pitch. Always with a reason too practiced, too ready. One night she came back with her makeup still intact and her hair better than when she left. Who touches up their eyeliner after 10 hours at the office? She also started carrying an extra set of clothes. At first, she said it was for yoga after work. Then it was in case I want to change before dinner with clients. But I never saw her use them. I never smelled sweat, never saw a gym bag, nothing. And the phone, the damn phone. She used to leave it on the coffee table, on the charger overnight, sometimes even let it die during the day. Now it never left her side. It was glued to her hip like a new limb. Notifications stopped lighting up the screen altogether. When I asked why, she said she turned everything off to be more present. Funny, she felt more absent than ever. Then the weirdest thing, airplane mode. Every night, like clockwork. I'd say something like, "Hey, did your mom text you back?" And she'd check her phone and go, "Oh, I forgot I put it on airplane mode." Sometimes she'd flip it back on and there'd be no new messages. Other nights, a flood of texts would pour in all at once, and she'd hide the screen with her palm. One time, I called her during the day just to check in. Nothing serious, just to ask if she wanted sushi or pizza for dinner. She answered, but her voice was off, flat, like I'd interrupted something. She said she was just stepping into a meeting. But I could hear wind in the background. Wind and laughter. Not hers. The biggest red flag came one Tuesday. She texted me saying she was spending the evening at her friend Claire's. Girls' night in, face masks and wine. I said cool, no problem. I even grabbed takeout and settled in for a quiet night. Around 9 p.m., I went down to the laundry room in our building, the one that faces the side exit. I'd left a load of towels in earlier and forgot to move them. As I was heading back upstairs, I saw her, walking out the building's side door, not in yoga pants and a hoodie like she'd claimed, but in a short leather jacket and boots, hair curled, makeup done, holding a phone to her ear and laughing. She didn't see me. She was too caught up in whoever was on the other end of that call. I ducked behind the stairwell like some kind of lunatic, heart pounding in my ears. That was the moment it stopped being suspicion. That was the moment it turned real. When she got home at 1:30 a.m., she came in quietly, kicked her shoes off at the door, slipped into bed without even waking me. Or maybe she thought I was asleep. I wasn't. I was laying there with my back to her, staring at the wall, trying not to spiral. Her perfume lingered on the pillow. Not the kind she wore for work. Something newer. Something floral and dark. I wanted to ask her where she really was. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I froze, because part of me wasn't ready to hear the truth. And then the laptop. That thing used to sit untouched most of the time. She did everything from her phone. But one day I needed to print something for work and my printer was acting up. I opened her MacBook without thinking. She wasn't home. I wasn't snooping. I was just trying to print a form. I opened the file directory, and that's when I saw it. A folder titled Seychelles 2023. We've never been to the Seychelles. We've talked about it, sure, back when things were good, when we made bucket lists in bed and dreamed out loud. But we never booked it. Never even planned it. And yet there it was. Dozens of pictures. I didn't even have to open them. Just seeing the thumbnails was enough. One was her on a beach, wearing a white bikini I'd never seen before, holding a drink and smiling toward the camera. Another, her standing under a palm tree, someone's arm clearly visible in the corner of the frame. The next one, a man, shirtless, tan, tall, holding her waist like it was second nature. They looked happy. My hand hovered over the trackpad, the cursor shaking slightly as I moved between files. The metadata on the photos? Just a few weeks old. She hadn't gone on a work trip. She hadn't gone to Claire's. She hadn't been here. She had been there with him. I closed the laptop and sat there, blinking at the screen like it might start over. Like if I stared hard enough, it would become a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. And suddenly, all the space she'd been asking for. All the late nights and locked phones and perfect makeup after long days. It all clicked. The new clothes weren't for her. The perfume wasn't for me. The distance wasn't emotional. It was literal. She had flown thousands of miles away and never even told me. That night, I lay in bed, back turned to the woman I used to know, feeling like I was living in someone else's skin. Every sound in the apartment, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, even the buzz of her phone vibrating across the room. It all felt foreign. Like echoes in a home that no longer belonged to me. And in that quiet, awful stillness, I realized something I had been too afraid to admit. I was already alone. I'd just been too in love or too blind to see it. Curiosity beat fear. That's how it always starts. Not with rage, not with some big confrontation, but with a quiet, gnawing need to know. To confirm what your gut has already screamed at you 100 different ways. I tried to tell myself I shouldn't look. That it would only make things worse. But the truth? Things were already bad. The only thing worse than knowing she was lying was pretending she wasn't. So I opened the folder. Seychelles 2023. There were more pictures than I thought, at least 50. And none of them could be explained away. The first one, Hannah in a bikini I didn't recognize, sitting on a lounge chair with her sunglasses half slid down her nose, smirking at the camera like she knew exactly what she was doing. In the next, she was waist-deep in turquoise water, arms around a man's shoulders. His face was turned away in that *T, but I could already tell. This wasn't some coworker. This wasn't a friend. This was someone she was with. And then I found the one that punched all the air out of my lungs. Hannah, lips pressed against his cheek, laughing, no, glowing, like she had just whispered something in *mate seconds before the shutter clicked. His hand was on her thigh. Hers was gripping the back of his neck like they'd done it 100 times before. It was unmistakable. There was no "you're overreacting" or "it's not what it looks like" excuse waiting in the wings. It was what it looked like. She wasn't working late or crashing at Claire's or stressed out from project deadlines. She was vacationing on white sand beaches with a man I'd never seen before. A man who clearly knew her body like it belonged to him. The file details confirmed it. The photos were dated just 2 weekends ago, the same weekend she claimed she was in New Jersey visiting her cousin. She even sent me a photo from what I now realized was a stock image of a brunch spot. I didn't think to question it at the time. Why would I? Because love makes you stupid. I sat there in front of her laptop, the room suddenly too quiet, too warm, too still. Her perfume still clung to the throw blanket on the couch. One of her earrings sat on the coffee table, next to a half-full glass of wine from the night before. It was all so normal. That's what really led me. That she had the audacity to come back here, into our home, and act like nothing had changed. Like she wasn't building an entirely new life on the side while leaving mine in limbo. I closed the folder, but it didn't matter. The images were burned into me now. And as I sat there, stunned into silence, her words from just a few days earlier echoed in my head. "You've become a burden, Joel. I need space. You're not who you used to be." I thought she meant we needed a break. Pause to recalibrate. Maybe a chance for both of us to figure things out. But now, I realized the truth. She didn't want space. She wanted distance. She wanted the freedom to walk away without technically leaving. To swap me out emotionally while keeping the safety net of our shared apartment, our history, our familiarity. She wanted to leave without being the one to actually pack the bags. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling fan spinning in slow, hypnotic circles. Every creak in the floor, every vibration of her phone on the nightstand, it all felt like some kind of message, like guilt was trying to communicate with me through the apartment itself. But it wasn't my guilt. It was hers. It filled the air like static. Thick, heavy, inescapable. At one point, I got up and paced the kitchen. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. It was like my body was stuck in survival mode, cycling through emotions it didn't know how to process. Rage, grief, disbelief, shame. Yeah, shame. That one surprised me. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I felt like a fool. Like I'd been standing under a leaky roof and kept convincing myself it was just condensation. How many signs had I ignored? How many lies had I let slide because I didn't want to seem paranoid? Because I didn't want to push her away, even though, in hindsight, she was already gone? I stared at the digital clock on the microwave as it ticked over to 3:41 a.m. I was wide awake, while she slept peacefully just down the hall. Or maybe not peacefully. I didn't know anymore. I didn't know anything anymore. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew inside and out, had turned into someone I couldn't even recognize in photos. And the worst part? She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I started remembering things, little things I'd brushed off. Like how she stopped using pet names. How she used to say "love you" at the end of every call. And then, at some point, it became just "okay, bye." How she started turning her body away from me in bed. How even when she kissed me it felt obligatory. A ghost of something we used to share. All those were warnings. I chalked them up to stress, to routine, to the natural fatigue of a long-term relationship. But they weren't. They were the sound of an exit door slowly creaking open. When the sun finally came up, I sat on the balcony with a mug of black coffee I didn't even want. The city buzzed beneath me. People going to work, catching buses, talking on the phone like it was just another day. But for me, nothing felt the same anymore. I had proof now. Hard, undeniable evidence. But what do you do with that? Do you confront her? Do you scream? Do you throw her laptop across the room and tell her to get the hell out? Or do you sit there, sipping coffee like you're not coming undone? I didn't know. I wasn't ready to explode, not yet. My brain was still catching up to what my eyes had seen. But one thing was clear. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a decision. She chose this. She chose him. She chose secrecy, distance, and betrayal. And now I had to choose too. I couldn't keep it in anymore. It had been eating me alive for days. The photos, the folder, the lies layered so neatly I almost admired the craftsmanship of it. But I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just hurt. I was exhausted, emotionally bankrupt from pretending we were still okay. Still something real. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I waited until she came home. Late, of course. Hair down, perfume clinging to her like a second skin. Heels in her hand like she just slipped out of someone else's life and stepped back into mine. She set her bag on the counter, paused when she saw me at the kitchen table. The air between us froze. She knew. I could see it in the way her shoulders stiffened, the slight shift in her breathing. Her lips parted, maybe to say something casual, to toss out another lazy excuse, but I beat her to it. "You spent the night with him, didn't you?" The words came out calm. Too calm. Like I'd rehearsed them 1,000 times in my head. Because I had. She didn't answer right away. She didn't cry, didn't panic, didn't reach for me. She just stood there, looking at me like I was someone she used to know, like she'd already said goodbye and was now back for the final sweep. Then, quietly, as if she were telling me it might rain tomorrow, she said, "Yes, I stayed over. That was it. No justification, no apology, just confirmation." And still, my heart cracked in disbelief. I already knew, but hearing it aloud made it real in a way the photos never could. It was like all the oxygen in the room vanished, like the floor fell out from under me, but I was still somehow standing. I stared at her, waiting, for guilt, regret, something. But she looked at me like a woman who had made her decision and wasn't interested in asking for forgiveness. "You ruined everything, Joel," she added. That part sent me spiraling. I ruined everything? I blinked, thinking maybe I heard her wrong. But no. She stood there, arms crossed, eyes sharp, tone unflinching. "I couldn't watch you fade anymore," she said. "You used to be alive, passionate. Lately you just exist." Every word felt like a knife carefully, deliberately placed. It wasn't enough that she cheated, now she was rewriting history. Suddenly I was the villain in the story. I was the one who let us die. It was like she needed to justify her betrayal by making me the reason she walked away. "I don't want to be with a man like you," she finished, voice flat. And that was the final blow. She didn't yell it. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She said it like it was fact, like telling someone the sky was blue. And then she turned and walked into the bedroom, shutting the door like she was done playing the part of my girlfriend. I stood there for a long time. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands were clenched so tight I didn't realize my nails had drawn blood until I saw the crescent marks in my palm. She didn't even care. That's what got me the most. Not the cheating, not the lies, not the gaslighting, the apathy. She looked at me like a roommate she outgrew, like a burden she'd finally shaken off, like I was just another chapter she was bored of rereading. I sat on the floor against the kitchen cabinets, knees drawn to my chest, staring at the fridge like it could give me answers. All I saw was a grocery list with both our handwriting. "Get more oat milk. Dinner with Claire Thursday?" A magnet from the aquarium trip we took last year. The one where she held my hand so tight on the glass tunnel walk that I thought she'd never let go. I couldn't wrap my head around how fast things changed. Or maybe they didn't. Maybe she'd been pulling away for months, and I just didn't want to see it. Maybe I'd been in love with a ghost. Later that night, I heard her moving around the bedroom. Drawers opening, zippers, the closet door sliding. I thought she was packing, and a sick part of me hoped she was. I couldn't handle another day of pretending. But she wasn't leaving. She was just rearranging, making space for herself. Her real self, the one who had already detached from this life. I didn't sleep, not even for a second. I sat on the balcony with an old hoodie wrapped around me, listening to the city murmur in the distance. At one point I cried, but only for a few seconds. Just enough for the release. Then I went numb. It was all too much to hold at once. The betrayal, the guilt, the gaslighting, the insult of being told you're the problem by the person who lit the match. And yet, I didn't yell. I didn't throw her stuff out the window. I didn't beg her to stay. I didn't fall to my knees or demand explanations. I just sat there, stunned into stillness, realizing there was nothing left to save. Because you can't rebuild something when only one person is still holding a hammer. We were done. Not because of one mistake. Not because of one night. But because the foundation had rotted quietly over time, and I had been too in love to smell the decay. The next morning, I watched her leave for work. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look at me. She just grabbed her bag, checked her lipstick in the hallway mirror, and walked out like she didn't just set fire to everything we'd built. And as the door closed behind her, I realized the silence no longer hurt. It just felt final. I didn't fold my clothes, didn't separate socks, didn't roll my shirts into perfect little bundles like I normally would. I just grabbed whatever I could reach and shoved it into my suitcase like I was trying to escape a fire. And in a way, I was. Every minute in that apartment felt like breathing in smoke from a life that had already burned down. I didn't want to be organized. I didn't want to be rational. I wanted out. She stood in the doorway of the bedroom, arms crossed, watching me with a look I couldn't quite read. Not sadness. Not regret. Something closer to irritation, like I was inconveniencing her by leaving instead of clinging to the scraps like she expected. "Think leaving will make you somebody?" she said. Her tone was sharp, cutting. Not desperate, defiant. She wasn't asking me to stay. She was daring me to follow through. I didn't reply at first. I zipped the bag slowly, forcing myself to breathe, to not react the way she wanted me to. She was trying to provoke me, trying to paint herself as the wounded one, the woman abandoned by the man who changed. "You'll regret this," she snapped when I didn't bite. "You won't survive without me, Joel. You think this is strength? You're running away." I looked at her then, really looked at her. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. Not relief. Not closure. Just this quiet, steady awareness that I was no longer shackled to someone who had already walked away. It wasn't love I saw in her face. It wasn't pain. It was disbelief that I was the one leaving first. "No," I said calmly. "I'm not running. I'm walking out of a fire you set." She didn't move, didn't blink. "You betrayed us, Hannah," I said. "I'm not coming back." And I meant it. The door felt heavier than usual when I pulled it shut behind me. Maybe it was the weight of everything I was leaving behind. The memories, the apartment, the version of myself that clung to the idea that we could fix this. But once it clicked shut, it felt final. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I didn't even bother turning on the GPS. I let my hands steer while my mind caught up with itself. Somewhere around midnight, I found myself pulling into the cracked lot of an old motel off the highway. The kind of place you used to sneak into with friends when you were young and broke and didn't care that the walls were thin or that the vending machine never worked. It was run down. The neon sign buzzed half dead, and the front desk guy didn't even ask for ID. Just slid me a key and muttered something about checkout being at 11. I dropped my bag inside the room, kicked off my shoes, and sank onto the creaky mattress. The place smelled like mildew and cleaning products that hadn't worked since the Bush administration. There were tiny roaches on the baseboard. One of the lamps flickered. The sheets felt rough, like they'd been washed 1,000 times and still hadn't come clean. And I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I didn't have to listen for the sound of her key in the door or brace myself for another cold comment. I didn't have to pretend to be okay. I didn't have to fight for a relationship I didn't recognize anymore. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. That night, I sat outside the motel room on a broken plastic chair, watching semis blur past on the highway. My phone buzzed twice. Her name lit up on the screen. I didn't answer. No voicemails. No apologies. Just a missed call and a text that read, "So that's it." I stared at it for a long time. That's the thing about leaving. People always assume it's impulsive. Like it comes out of nowhere. Like you just snap one day and walk out. But the truth is, leaving happens slowly. It starts with that first ignored message. That first brush off. That first time you catch them smiling at a screen and you know it isn't you. It builds, brick by brick, until you're standing inside a prison made of your own denial. And eventually, something inside you breaks. Not with a scream, but with a whisper. You stop hoping. You stop begging. You stop being afraid of what life will look like without them. And when that fear disappears, that's when you leave. I didn't answer her text. I turned my phone off, tossed it onto the stained nightstand, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. The bed creaked under my weight as I lay down, but I didn't care. I stared at the ceiling for a long time, letting my mind go blank. No plans, no what-ifs, no rehearsing future conversations. Just stillness. At some point I fell asleep. No dreams, no nightmares, just blackness, peaceful, uninterrupted blackness. In the morning, I woke to the sun creeping in through the bent blinds. I sat up slowly, unsure what day it even was. I didn't care. I was free. That motel, with its bad plumbing and flickering lights, felt more like home than our apartment had in months. I showered, got dressed, packed my bag. I didn't know where I was going next. Maybe back to my brother's place for a few days. Maybe I'd rent a short-term place and rebuild from there. But wherever it was, it would be mine. My space, my air, my peace. And Hannah wouldn't be in it. That evening, I drove to a park we hadn't visited in years. The one with the old rusted swings and the faded graffiti. We had kissed there once under a street lamp. Back when things were still innocent. Back when love felt light. I sat on the swing, alone, letting the chains creak with every small motion. Wind blew through the trees like a whisper from a life I used to know. I closed my eyes and tried to picture us. Laughing, young, stupidly in love. But all I could see was her face when she said, "You're not who you used to be." That was true. But neither was she. Somewhere along the way, we stopped walking toward each other and started drifting in opposite directions. I was just the one who noticed last. I used to think Ryan, the man from the photos, was the betrayal. But the truth? She had left long before him. She just didn't pack her bags. I was the backup plan. The safe option until something more exciting came along. Sitting there, I didn't feel hate. I felt clarity. She wasn't mine to lose anymore. And I didn't want her back. By the time I got back to the motel, I wasn't broken. I was new. The kind of new that only comes after everything else is stripped away. I brushed my teeth, washed my face, looked in the mirror, and for the first time in a long time, I saw me. Not who she wanted. Not who I tried to be. Just me. Scarred, tired, healing, and real. The next morning, I went to the gym. First time in years. Not for revenge. Not to win the breakup. Just because I wanted to move. To do something that was mine again. My arms ached after 10 minutes. I didn't care. I looked in the mirror, sweat dripping, chest heaving, and I didn't see failure. I saw progress. My phone buzzed after the workout. A message from Hannah. "Are you gone for good? Or just cooling off?" Before, I would have panicked. I would have replied, explained, begged. But this time, I blocked her number. No drama. No goodbye. Just silence, the kind that comes with peace, not punishment. That night, I stood in front of the mirror, sore and sweaty, and sent one last text. Not to her, but to myself, written in my journal. My next step is living without her. I hit the period with more satisfaction than I've felt in years. That chapter was closed. And for the first time in forever, the next one was mine to write.